Soul Land Episode 161 Original Novel DouLuo DaLu. Chapter 194. Xiao Wu, Resurrection, 1/4. TL Bio WL404. Golden light concentrated on Xue Qinghe's hands, and meanwhile, Tang San was affected by the purification of angel domain, therefore he felt difficult even to gather a thread of spirit power. Tang San, goodbye. Let me end your life on my own. This will be the last thing that I can do for you. Don't worry, I will give you a lavish funeral, and also remember you forever. Before you die, let you see my true feature. I believe, you will die without anything to regret. Saying that, Xue Qinghe raised and put his hand into the clothes before his chest. Turning his hand over, and lifting fast, a bizarre mask which connected with the deep neck had already been removed. Although he was in an edge of life and death, when Tang San saw Xue Qinghe's true feature, his pupil still shrunk involuntarily a great deal because of surprise. Now, Xue Qinghe displayed before his eyes had a figure of a man, though her face had already changed into a pretty face with coldly beauty. From outside, she seemed to have an appearance slightly more than 20, snow-white skin, dignified phoenix eyes. Compared with the originally amiable appearance of Xue Qinghe, she was much more distinct. Straight bridge of the nose, slightly slender phoenix eyes, a face with somewhat stateliness. At a glance, she was not as beautiful as Ning Rongrong or Xiao Wu, but the dignity in her coldness, Tang San had only seen a similar one on Bibi Dong's face. The Supreme Pontiff descendant who had been impersonating Prince Xue Qinghe for a long time, was actually not a male. How couldn't Tang San feel surprised? The golden light in Xue Qinghe's hands became more and more profuse. Seeing Tang San, her eyes expressed a somewhat complicated emotion, of which regret was the most. Regret that such a talent would be destroyed in her hands. My original name is Qianrongxue 1. Tang San, dying by my hands, you won't be a lost ghost. Saying that, she raised her right hand and then chopped in a slow speed, very slow. Her eyes focusing on Tang San all the time, under the threat of death, she believed this would bring to Tang San the biggest psychological stress. No matter what, there was still a thread of final hope in her heart. In her view, as long as he was human, he would be afraid of death. Tang San smiled calmly, no matter if you are man or woman. For me, your identity didn't make any sense. Now that you come from Spirit Hall, you will be my enemy. No wonder you would be so impetuous to say your own secret, behind your firmness is a trace of gentleness, you're a woman. At the same moment, there came a loud shout from far away in palace, who are you, you dare trespass in the palace? Qianrongxue's face changed a little, and the light in her eyes was finally replaced by sharpness, demonstrating her resolute and killing side entirely. Her right hand accelerated abruptly, and a 3 meters wide huge light blade fell from the sky, chopping to Tang San. Having decided to destroy Tang San, this attack of hers was the strongest she could use. The moment Qianrongxue chopped this attack, suddenly, a blue-golden light on Tang San's body which belonged to Blue-Silver Emperor flashed and passed, and a red ring of light also lit up in that moment. An unreal but graceful silhouette emerged and blocked in front of Tang San. Floating long hair, snowy white skin, wasn't that Xiao Wu in the soul state? Facing the splendid golden light chop of Xue Qinghe, her face changed a little. Appearing as spirit ability, similar to Tang San in the state of nothingness of his 6th spirit ability, and even more nothingness, no physical or energy attack could have an effect on her body, but because of the same reason, she couldn't block any form of attack either. Therefore, although she released the 6th spirit ability by sheer force relying on her soul power, her current form couldn't block this attack for Tang San. At that moment, a miracle happened. Xiao Wu's eyes lit up abruptly, and gorgeous pink splendor made her eyes as bright and beautiful as gems. Under the pull of the pink light, a silhouette flew out from Tang San's waist and immediately merged with Xiao Wu in midair. Turning back, pouncing, opening her arms, and throwing her long hair on Tang San's shoulders, she then threw her whole body into Tang San's arms, using her body to protect Tang San. And simultaneously, the golden light blade fell down from mid-air. That silhouette appearing suddenly from Tang San's waist, was naturally Xiao Wu's real body. And at that moment, Xiao Wu's real body and soul actually combined together. Tang San could feel clearly that Xiao Wu's body wasn't empty anymore, and was filled with fervent emotion that made both his body and heart shake fiercely. Xiao Wu, this was a real Xiao Wu. Tang San wanted to move, wanted to turn his body, to block that golden blade, but he couldn't make it at all. There was not a single shred of spirit power within his body. The purifying energy infused into his veins couldn't hurt him, but every time he managed to concentrate a little spirit power, it would be offset by the purifying energy within his body. So how could he compete with Xiao Wu in terms of his strength now? Flickering with pale pink light, Xiao Wu's eyes was deeply watching Tang San. Hugging his body tightly, in her eyes, there was only Tang San's being, as if the golden light blade chopping on her back abruptly wasn't there at all. Xiao Wu seeing the golden light fall on Xiao Wu's body, a sharp pain crept into Tang San's mind, and then their bodies were lifted simultaneously by the powerful force. A thread of delight appeared on Xiao Wu's pretty face. She had protected the man she loved again, looking at Tang San's eyes tenderly which had already turned red. Gee! A soft call, that was nevertheless a shock to Tang San's soul. After months, when he again heard Xiao Wu's call, all of the redness in his eyes faded away, saying tremblingly, "Xiao Wu, my Xiao Wu." With a thread of sweet smile, Xiao Wu loosed her arms around Tang San eventually, jumping fleetingly, as if having no weight, and then shot towards Jianrongxiu who was dropping slowly. There was a huge fissure on the clothes behind her back, uncovering the white armor in it, exactly the God Class 8 treasure wishful soft armor. After Jianrongxiu was heavily injured, her attack couldn't surpass even the extent of rank 60, therefore, the light blade of her merely pushed Tang San and Xiao Wu's bodies, but couldn't hurt Xiao Wu's real body. Xiao Wu, relying on the summoning of her soul, temporarily combined her soul and body together which accorded perfectly, thus she could save Tang San with her real body. Xiao Wu pounced swiftly towards Jianrongxiu, the tenderness in her eyes gone, replaced by chilling cold. Her body broke through the air and turned successively in midair several times. In practically just a few eye blinks, she had reached Jianrongxiu. The two women's eyes met, of which Jianrongxiu's were shocked since she knew with certainty that Xiao Wu had sacrificed herself to save Tang San, and she couldn't figure out how Xiao Wu would appear before her in person. There existed only killing intention in Xiao Wu's eyes. Opening her arms, a layer of strong pink light covered her whole body. Jianrongxiu was trying to focus strength to attack Xiao Wu when a slight pain assaulted her chest. The moment her angel spirit power stagnated a little, Xiao Wu had already reached her. Xiao Wu's arms twisted around Jianrongxiu's arms which were pushing back at her as nimble as snakes, her slender waist swaying, her whole body had captured Jianrongxiu's body in an instant of grappling, and her whole being had twisted completely around Jianrongxiu. Jianrongxiu's body was completely rigid under Xiao Wu's grappling. Xiao Wu's body was even more pliable and tough after the reconstructing of two top-grade immortal herbs. Suddenly, Jianrongxiu's body had already been thrown abruptly by Xiao Wu, and since it was in midair, what Xiao Wu had released was not the instant kill 8-stage drop. After possessing her real body, she had already temporarily broken away from the range Tang San's spirit ability. At a glance, Xiao Wu and Jianrongxiu's bodies seemed to form a huge wheel, spinning rapidly and continuously in midair, emitting pink and golden light now and then, of which pink was the core while golden was the outside. Everyone could sense the increasingly powerful fluctuation of energy contained within it. Both Porcupine Fish DouLuo and Snake Lance DouLuo's faces turned. After they gave each other a look, Porcupine Fish DouLuo pounced forward abruptly, his huge body swelled again in the state of spirit avatar, and the 9th spirit ring on his body finally lit up. Under the state where Jianrongxiu was facing a life crisis, the two-titled DouLuo couldn't hold themselves back anymore. They were going to show their strongest strength. Black flame on Yang Wudi's body rose up abruptly when his 8th spirit ring lit too. On the other side, Dugubo's 9th spirit ability also lit up simultaneously. Jade Phosphor Serpent's body had already turned transparent, as if really carved of green jade. In the sky, in the light wheel, golden light was continuously flashing fiercely. Obviously, Jianrongxiu was trying to escape in a variety of ways, but no matter how hard she worked, under the condition of her heavy injuries, she couldn't get free of Xiao Wu's soft skill. The only thing she could do was to accompany Xiao Wu's body to spin rapidly and then flew to the ground. Snake Lance DouLuo returned to human form, the snake lance shaking in his hand, extending immediately, becoming longer slashed at the light wheel in midair. In order to save Jianrongxiu, he couldn't think too much of Porcupine Fish DouLuo being besieged. The moment when the snake lance was going to slash down on the light wheel, it stopped in midair, and then a golden silhouette was thrown out like a meteor, running directly at Snake Lance DouLuo with incomparably forceful momentum. The light in Snake Lance DouLuo's eyes concentrated a little, the snake lance in his hand trembling. He was attempting to catch Jianrongxiu's body through his control of snake lance against impact force. However, the moment his snake lance collided with the golden light, his face turned fiercely, since the impulse of that golden meteor was much more violent than he had judged. But he was a titled DouLuo after all, so the snake lance in his hand sent out cloud after cloud of lights to neutralize the violent impulse with as soft a force as possible. Hong! A loud boom echoed from behind Snake Lance DouLuo, then a fierce cracking sound gave a shiver to Snake Lance DouLuo's mind, whose strength of his hands to control loosed a little immediately. Under the tremendous impact, he moved backward rapidly with the golden meteor, stepping more than 10 paces before narrowly catching his balance. For the purpose of blocking that fierce impulse, it was hard to avoid using too much strength. The golden light stopped, with a wah sound. Qianrongxiu vomited a mouthful of fresh blood on Snake Lance DouLuo's chest. The instant before she fell unconscious, she couldn't help giving a look in Tang San's direction. Even though her eyes were already hazy, unwillingness still teemed within them. Then her body softened and collapsed into Snake Lance DouLuo's arms, unconscious. On the other side, Porcupine Fish DouLuo was not that lucky. His strength was above DouGubo a little, and his spirit was also restricting DouGubo's, however, Yang Wudi's spirit restricted his. Even though Yang Wudi was just a spirit DouLuo, his attack power was absolutely titled DouLuo class. Facing the strongest attacks of the two, Porcupine Fish DouLuo's outcome was imaginable. His swelling body broke again, and this time DouGubo seized the chance to cut in. The formidable corrosive ability of his 9th spirit ability with a strong green light devoured the lower half of Porcupine Fish DouLuo's spirit avatar body directly. DouGubo and Yang Wudi vomited blood simultaneously, but Porcupine Fish DouLuo was thrown next to Snake Lance's body like a broken jute bag, having returned half to real body, bathed in blood, life or death unknown. And because of the emission of spirit power made by the collision of their full strength before, no less than half of the 100 spirit masters around had lost their lives, involved in their top-class spirit abilities. Not daring to stop, choking back physical injuries, DouGubo and Yang Wudi came to either side of Tang San, protecting him from the left and right. Xiao Wu fell down from the sky, and once again threw herself into Tang San's arms. A resonance from their very souls made both of them tremble a little. This time, Xiao Wu didn't open her mouth, softly touching Tang San's lips with her own. The next moment, her body softened and fell into Tang San's arms, her soul again transforming into a pink light and blending into Tang San's body. Feeling Xiao Wu's body limp for lack of soul, an intense sadness rose up from his heart. If not for Spirit Hall, how could Xiao Wu suffer so bitterly? Holding up Qianrongxiu with one arm, Snake Lance DouLuo shouted angrily, "Kill them!" The rest of the dozens of spirit masters of Spirit Hall was comparatively higher in rank. Hearing his order, they released their spirits and besieged Tang San's trio from all directions. Now, all of Tang San and the others were already arrows at the end of their flight, especially Tang San himself, who had already completely lost fighting capacity. At this moment of crisis, suddenly, 3 silhouettes dropped from the sky, forming a triangle around the Tang San's trio, just including the 3 of them. Sun and Moon Dazzling Golden Turn. Sun and Moon Dazzling Golden Turn. 3 intense golden lights rose up from the 3 towards the sky, spreading everywhere, and formed a golden triangle with the 3 as corners. Within the innermost part, there was a golden halo, around which were assorted intricate lines. The new arrivals were no strangers, but the golden triangle, formed by Flender in the lead with Grand Master and Lu Erlong. The Flender's trio were pervaded with a layer of glistening golden color. Flender and Lu Erlong closed their eyes slowly, and the light in Grand Master's eyes clearly grew brighter, stabbing at the dozens of spirit masters who were rushing towards them, like 2 sharp swords. A degree of integration no less than 99% made the light produced by the spirit fusion ability of their spirits more and more dazzling. With the 3 of them as corners, an intense triangular light pillar soared immediately to the sky. By now, the spirit masters from Spirit Hall had begun to attack them crazily. But under the protection of that golden light, their attack had no effect at all. When the golden iron triangle was releasing their spirit fusion ability, a protective golden light would produce a kind of effect similar to Tang San's invincible golden body. Grand Master's eyes filled with deathly chill suddenly shone with dazzling brilliance, raising his right hand slowly, toward the center of the golden triangle formed by the 3 of them. Luo Sanbao. With a deep sound which sounded like the roar of dragon, the chubby Luo Sanbao appeared out of nowhere and landed at the center of the golden triangle. In an instant, light halos sprang up from them 3 respectively and simultaneously. Grand Master had 4, while Flender and Lu Erlong both had 8. 20 rings of light in all actually floated out from their bodies to Sanbao in the center of the golden halo. Huge pressure not only forced those normal spirit masters to tumble back rapidly, but also made Snake Lance DouLuo's face change drastically. He could clearly sense that the golden light had already surpassed the pressure he could produce in his full state. Making a prompt decision, he snatched up Porcupine Fish DouLuo with the other hand, holding Qianrongxiu and leaped up, and taking advantage of the cover of those normal spirit masters, disappearing in the distance in a few bounds. Grandmaster's trios altogether 20 spirit rings simultaneously fell on Luo Sanbao, who went from seemingly extremely cute to seeming to suffer extreme pain. With an intense dragon roar, the 20 spirit rings on its chubby body began to swell violently, and then began to rise up slowly under the light released by Golden Triangle. Luo Sanbao's body was growing at an amazing speed, and blocks of rhombic scales appeared on his chubby body, lumps of massive muscles bulging. A huge body kept growing, 2 twisted horns grew from the top of the head, and blue-purple light surged around its body continuously, which were gradually rendered gold by the Golden Triangle. In just the time of several breaths, Luo Sanbao's body had already expanded to the extent of nearly 30 meters, scales splitting open on his back, and a pair of huge dragon wings spreading out. Without assistance of the golden light, it still could float in midair. The original eyes revealing simple and cute temperament now radiated extreme prestige, having become golden like its body. Luo Sanbao at this moment, was not that pig-dog-like animal, but a huge golden dragon with awe-inspiring and dazzling appearance. 4 claws under its belly, and thick dragon scales covering its whole body, golden dragon eyes were filled with dignified aura, which spread with powerful dragon prestige, making the spirit masters of Spirit Hall not dare move forward anymore and step back in panic. Streaks of golden electric ray surrounded Luo Sanbao, who was radiating light from its whole body and floating there, like a golden sun. Although Tang San's body was weak, his spirit was still really sober, putting the unconscious Xiao Wu carefully into his wishful 100 treasure purse, shouting deeply, "Quick, protect Emperor Shuiyat, the Emperor can't die." When Snake Lance DouLuo brought Qianrongxiu and Porcupine Fish DouLuo to leave in another direction, he breathed a sigh of relief inwardly. Clearly, he was somewhat panicked. He didn't return to the resting palace, for fear of being killed by the unfathomable Golden Iron Triangle. But he didn't know that the biggest weakness of Golden Iron Triangle Spirit Fusion ability was its attack range. Once incarnated into the Golden Saint Dragon, Luo Sanbao could only attack within a certain range. The next stage of the fight held no suspense. Having added 20 spirit rings and mutated, Luo Sanbao could only be described as terrifying, so even DouLuo who had once fought against it relying on Jade Phosphor Serpent was drastically surprised. Not until now had he realized Golden Iron Triangle had evolved to such an extent. Even the highest level title DouLuo would find it difficult to defeat them. Since Grandmaster and Lu Erlong had established their relationship, Golden Iron Triangle walked together again. Over the years, even if the Shrek 7 Devils had been growing, they were also stepping forward. Although much slower than Shrek 7 Devils, don't forget that Grandmaster's strength was poor before. With the 9th grade Purple Zoisha provided by Tang San, Grandmaster had solved the problem of cultivation upper limit, and after Grandmaster broke through rank 30, his spirit power was continuously progressing and had already reached more than rank 40, and also had 2 more spirit rings. Flender and Lu Erlong had advanced to Spirit DouLuo level powers, and so their Trinity Spirit Fusion ability made a qualitative leap. The most formidable point of a Spirit Fusion ability was in the effect it displayed after fusing the spirit abilities of each Spirit Master. In other words, when releasing a Spirit Fusion ability, no matter which Spirit Master involved enhanced their strength, the power of the Spirit Fusion ability would improve. So this was why the more people involved, the more powerful the Spirit Fusion ability would be. Therefore, the might of Luo Sanbao could now only be described as terrifying. For those Spirit Masters who hadn't surpassed rank 60 and were shocked by the highest level spirit abilities, how could they withstand the attack of Luo Sanbao? Just after several holy breaths, there were plenty of corpses, and less than 1/3 ran fast enough to escape. In order to control the situation of Emperor Shuiyat, Qianrongxiu had dispelled all of the guards before. Tang San had no time to talk with Grandmaster. With help of DouLuo and Yang Wudi, they broke into the resting palace as fast as possible. When they were standing by Emperor Shuiyat, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief, at least Emperor Shuiyat was still alive. The emperor who had originally ruled a huge empire was at his last gasp now. Maids by his bed shed tears anxiously. If the emperor died, they would be buried with him. DouLuo pushed aside the maids somewhat rudely. He had been treating Emperor Shuiyi's poison all the time, so he was naturally familiar with his condition. Moving close to him, he turned over Emperor Shuiyi's eyelids and saw that his eyes had already completely rolled back, and his face was as black as ink. DouLuo said deeply, the poison is active. I don't know if it was that girl called Jianrongxiu who gave him the poison. But he won't last long. At most the time of a stick of incense. Both Tang San and Yang Wudi were masters of using poison, and they were watching the condition of Emperor Shuiyi attentively. Obviously, his condition was extremely terrible. Even now he was on the verge of death, and could die at any time. Tang San judged attentively, and he found that the medicine he had now would be difficult to make a difference, since the extent Emperor Shuiyi was poisoned was too deep. Just when he was reflecting how to help Emperor Shuiyi struggle on at death's door, or at least deal with the situation once he died, he suddenly heard a slight expression of surprise from Yang Wudi. There was a silver needle in Yang Wudi's hand somehow, which was not a pure silver needle, but looked made of a special metal, glistening silver light mixed with bits and pieces of purple color. Pinching the silver needle in hand, and muttering slightly, Yang Wudi flicked his wrist and thrust the silver needle into Emperor Shuiyi's key vein, with such skill that the silver needle inserted into Emperor's wrist vein through his wrist. Both Tang San and DouLuo didn't open their mouth. They had no choice, they had to anchor their hope on Yang Wudi. After 3 seconds, Yang Wudi flicked his finger slightly, and that silver needle leaped out from Emperor Shuiyi's wrist vein. When the silver needle dropped to the ground, Tang San couldn't help drawing in his breath. On the slender silver needle, there were actually 7 different colors. Actually made from 7 poisonous materials. No wonder even old freak can't solve it. Elder Yang Wudi, do you know this kind of poison? As long as we find its recipe, there will be an opportunity to save Emperor Shuiyi. Yang Wudi's face turned somewhat weird, and the silver needle in his hand was even trembling slightly. Looking at Tang San, he said briefly, we shall bring him back. I can solve this poison, but I need time. Tang San exulted, looking at DouLuo, old freak, how long can you keep him alive using poison to combat poison? DouLuo muttered deeply, no problem for 24 hours. However, if we can't save him within this time, he will no doubt die, even immortals couldn't help him. Tang San said without the slightest hesitation, do it. DouLuo nodded, cutting his finger with a fingernail, compelled by a layer of green light, a drop of venom as black as ink slowly poured out from his fingertip. He didn't let Emperor Shuiyi take it directly, but rather used his other hand which was free to smack Emperor Shuiyi's body rapidly. Tang San didn't ask Yang Wudi more, just nodded to him, Elder Yang, I'll leave Emperor Shuiyi to you and old freak. By now, the effect of purification within his body had finally disappeared. Although he was still exhausted, it was enough for him to walk. The golden iron triangle had withdrawn the spirit fusion ability, guarding outside the palace gate. Tang San walked over to them, Dean Flender. What's the situation outside? How about the academy? He didn't ask Grandmaster, but Flender, which was a respect to Flender, since he was the leader of Golden Iron Triangle after all. Flender said deeply, we took advantage of the confusion to slip inside. Seeing your distress signal, we knew something had happened. We first settled those Heaven Do Imperial Family Spirit Masters in the academy, but we still had to leave some people there. Then we circled around a large number of enemies guarding the academy and hurried here. When we came, we just saw a lot of spirit masters were attacking the palace and were blocked out by the army of the palace guard arm. There seemed to be people from the Strength clan among them. It was then we took the advantage of the disorderliness made by them and entered. However, before our entering, we already saw spirit masters from palace coming out to support. Light in Tang San eyes flickered slightly, after a simple reflecting, said, we must leave here as quickly as possible. Before Emperor Shuiyi wakes up, we will have no chance. Those spirit masters who attacked the imperial household might come from our Tang sect, which was a point Jianrongxiu overlooked. I just hadn't thought that the imperial household would defend such cautiously. If you hadn't arrived in time, I'm afraid our situation would be really bad. Jianrongxiu is Shui Qinghe, that woman before. Don't know how she managed to always disguise herself as Shui Qinghe. She is also the daughter of Spirit Hall's previous Supreme Pontiff. With merely several simple words, Tang San had already explained the situation clearly. Grandmaster said, go back to the academy first. Only with the support of Emperor Shuiyi can we counterattack. The defense of the imperial palace is strict, we'd better hurry up, or your Tang sect will lose a great deal. On saying that, a white silhouette flew over with an extremely high speed. Seeing that silhouette, Tang San hastily gestured for Lu Erlong aside him hurriedly to make a signal. A cloud of flame draw attention of that white silhouette, who floated down and landed, the patriarch of the Speed clan, Bai He. Seeing Tang San was well, Bai He immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Sect Master, are you all right? What's going on here? Seeing Bai He, Tang San was also very glad, said immediately, Granduncle, don't ask what's going on right now. Please send the disciples of Tang sect a message immediately. Tell them to retreat, not go back to the sect, but go to Shrek Academy directly. We will get together with you at once. Bai He could see the anxiety in Tang San's eyes, so after nodding slightly to Grandmaster and the others, he soared towards the sky and disappeared like cloud and smoke, inwardly surprising Grandmaster's trio. Lu Erlong praised, what a fast speed. We can fly too, but really slower compared with him. Grandmaster said, maybe he hasn't showed his real speed yet. If I'm not wrong, this is the patriarch of the Speed clan. It's said that if he flies with his full strength, he can cross the whole continent in 3 days. He is the fastest spirit master in the world today, no one can compare. Through the explanation of Grandmaster, Flender and Lu Erlong finally understood how formidable Bai He's speed was. Little freak, I'm fine on this end. What's next? Tang San turned his head, seeing DouLuo walking over carrying Emperor Shuye on his back with Yang Wudi. Without hesitation, Tang San said immediately, break through at once, go back to the academy. Dean Flender, Grandmaster, will trouble you. The group all left the resting palace, and ran in a direction led by DouLuo. Without waiting for the help of Golden Iron Triangle, Yang Wudi rushed ahead, while DouLuo and Tang San stayed in the middle, and Golden Iron Triangle guarding the rear. DouLuo not only carried Emperor Shuye, but also needed to assist Tang San move forward. Although his spirit power had been consumed a great deal, his speed wasn't decreased. On leaving the resting palace, they came across the Imperial Guard army. Right now, time was most important. Yang Wudi's breaking soul lance couldn't be more suitable to strike ahead, serving as a sharp impact. Wherever the soul-breaking spear went, everything was swept aside. The 6 rushed out practically without slowing down. By now, the whole palace was in a mess. Tang San and Qian Rongxiu's fight in the sky before disturbed the whole palace, and with the attack from outside, the Imperial Guard army in the palace was undoubtedly immediately thrown into chaos. And what was most notable was undoubtedly the 1,000 of spirit masters from Tang sect who attracted a great number of Imperial Guards. Among the 6, only Tang San had no fighting capacity, and of the other 5, even Grandmaster was more than rank 40. With another 3 spirit DouLuo and a title DouLuo, how could the soldiers of the Imperial Guard army block them? Breaking through in a fast speed, they pulled away out of the palace. Snake Lance DouLuo couldn't pay any attention to saving Porcupine Fish DouLuo, who was at his last gasp, instead pressing both hands on Qian Rongxiu's back, helping cure her. Qian Rongxiu's spirit was mighty after all, so not long after, she gradually woke up. Her angelic spirit power was purifying for others, but for herself, it had an extremely strong healing effect. However, when she woke up now, she had to ignore curing herself immediately, rather forcing herself to stand. Seeing Snake Lance DouLuo, she asked anxiously, Emperor Shuye. Hearing Qian Rongxiu's question, Snake Lance DouLuo also sobered, his expression immediately changing. 1 Qian Rongxiu, 1000 Ren Snow. Finish here. Subscribes, likes and comments guys. Good day guys and girls.